Let's use the ScanNCut to cut applique pieces for our Pumpkins and Potions quilt. After using my ScanNCut to cut the applique piece for the chandelier, I thought about cutting several more for more of the blocks in the Pumpkins and Potions quilt. While I'm new to the ScanNCut, I have had a silhouette cameo for almost 15 years, but I never cut fabric. So this quilt gives me a perfect opportunity to start using the ScanNCut with the applique pieces. Of course, this is totally optional, and all of the applique pieces can be done the traditional way. I've opened canvasworkspace.brother.com, and this is the page that you'll come to. You can start a new project, or if you have projects already saved, you can go to the My Projects tab. I will start a new project. Since I have a 12 by 12 mat to work with, I am going to bring in several SVG files from Section 2 and Section 3 of the quilt. Kimberbell Designs includes SVG files for almost all of their applique pieces. The only applique pieces that they don't include an SVG file for is an applique that will have a raw edge, meaning it won't have an outline stitch. All other applique pieces will have an SVG. To bring in the file, I will use this SVG icon on the top toolbar. I will go to Choose File, and I need to navigate to where I have my file saved. I have a folder called Embroidery, and in that folder I have a Kimberbell folder with all my different projects. I opened the Pumpkins and Potions, and then within that file for the Pumpkins and Potions quilt, there is a file or a folder called SVG for electronic cutting. And that is where all the SVG files for the Pumpkins and Potions quilt are located. The first file I'm going to bring in is for the spider. I will double click and select OK. And that will bring in the spider's body and put it onto the mat. I am going to move this little body aside and bring in the next file. The next file will be a potion bottle. Now on the potion bottles, there are 3 separate bottles. Bottle 1, I am going to do the traditional way, so I am not going to bring that SVG file in. The second bottle, the only SVG that is included is the little bottle top, and so I'm going to also do that the traditional way. For bottle 3, I will bring in the SVGs. Go back to the SVG icon on the toolbar, and I will go to Choose File. Now here are the bottles, and I actually had to rename these. For some reason, the bottles just had letters and numbers, and they weren't listed like these were down here with the names. So I had to figure out which bottle was which, and I went ahead and labeled them. I'm going to bring in bottle 3, the label, select OK. That brings the little label in. I will go back to the SVG icon, choose File, and bring in the bottle 3 and select OK. And that will bring the bottle and the bottle top in. Now I am going to do one more for the bottles, and that is going to be bottle 1, the label. I will double click on that and select OK. And that is the label for the bottle 1. I do want to mention something about bottle 2. Here we have the label for bottle 1, and we have the label for bottle 3. But the label for bottle 2 is going to be on fabric that we have backed with the fusible interfacing, just like these 2 labels. However, this label will be a raw edge applique which again means that there will not be any decorative outline that will completely cover the edge of the label, and so there is no SVG for that label. There is also no SVG for the actual bottle. The bottle is only clear vinyl. All of the bottles will have clear vinyl, but bottle 2 will not have any fabric behind the bottle other than the background for the entire block. This will be a little bit easier to understand once we get to stitching, but that's the reason that there isn't a label for bottle 2. Now I'm going to bring in a few applique pieces from section 3. I am going to bring in the 31 applique pieces, so I will go to the SVG icon, go to choose file, and here is the 31. I will double click and select OK. Now this has the big circle that goes onto the block as well as the numbers. I am going to go ahead and select just the numbers, and I am going to right click and group. I want those together, and so it'll be easy to move, so I'm just going to group those. I haven't decided if I'm actually going to cut this with the ScanNCut or if I will just cut the circle in the traditional way. I'll leave it on there right now until I make a decision. I'm going to do one more from section 3. I will go to the SVG and choose file, and this is going to be the owl. Double click, select OK, and these are the pieces for the owl. Now there is one more in section 3, the jack-o'-lanterns, but I think I am just going to do those the traditional way. So these are what I'm going to use the ScanNCut to cut the applique pieces for our next couple of sections. I am going to separate these just a little bit so I will be able to put fabric behind them and not have that overlap. However, once I take it to the ScanNCut, I will be able to move them. So this is just kind of a head start on that. Now I will go to download, and you will be given two options. One, you can download it to your computer. Then you would be able to add it to your USB and take it to your machine. Or you can transfer it right to your machine if you have set up the wireless. I am going to select the transfer. And it says the ScanNCut transfer is ready. That's how quick and easy it is to get these designs to my ScanNCut. If I want to save this page so I can come back to it, I will come up to the left-hand side on the toolbar and give it a name and select the second icon over. And it says saving this project is completed. So just like in Embrilliant's Essential Software, I could do many of these pages and just save them until I'm ready to open and use them. So if I come to the opening page of the Canvas Workspace, I can come to My Projects and all my pages will be saved. I can either choose the left where it says Edit this project, or the icon on the right is where I can send it to my machine. That way I can get things ready ahead of time and use them when I'm ready. Now I will go through my packets and pull the piece of material that corresponds with the SVGs and put them on my mat. Now I will turn my machine on. And remember, I will go to Retrieve Data and from the cloud. And that brings up the page that we just worked on. Now I roughly have my material where I place them on the page, but of course they're not going to be exact. So I need to scan my mat. I will put the corner right next to this ledge and select this little icon that looks like a page with a grid on it. Now I will go to this blue button and it will scan the whole entire mat. I need to make sure that my tape's down so it doesn't catch. So now you can see that I just need to drag my little SVGs over the fabric to get in place correctly. So I've roughly got them placed, but I want to zoom in to make sure that I do have them correctly, especially the light fabric. Even though I marked the corners, it's still a little bit hard to see. So if I hit these three little boxes, I would be able to zoom in, and then I can kind of fine tune each of those. If I want to move it up in this screen where it's zoomed, I can hit these arrows right here. That looks good. That one looks good. And then to move the page down, I will go to these arrows. That looks good. This 31, it's hard to tell. Even in person, I can see the little tiny lines, but barely. So I'm going to move them over just a little bit. I accidentally moved this one. So what it just did when it paused, it was cutting this last one, and I think because this tape got peeled back, there's a lever on the side of the machine that if you use thicker material, that it raises this little lever up, and so it told me to do that. And again, I think it's because the tape got folded back, and so it was thinking that this was thicker material, so it retested and then cut this last one. So maybe with tape, I will probably just keep the lever on 2, but let's see how they did. I'm going to unload by hitting this button right here. It looks like a little grid. Although I probably should check before I unload, because if for some reason something didn't cut, if I don't unload my mat, I can resend it. So that's something to remember in the future. So hopefully they all cut. So let's get the little spatula in case we need it. So now what I will do is I will take these pieces and put them back in the packets so that when I get to that packet, I will have these all together and I won't lose anything.